the NZXT H7 Flow. It's sort of a new kid on the block. It's a new NZXT case, which looks to address some of the criticisms people have with NZXT cases of the past. We're thinking things like choked out airflow, and of course not being able to fit as many components inside as you might like, but you also want to keep that good, sexy NZXT design language. So what we're going to be doing in this video today is taking a case tour. So we're going to be looking throughout the whole case, seeing what it comes with, what kind of things you can mount into it. Then we're going to go through a complete build. So we're going to be putting in a lovely high-end PC into this case to see what the build process is like. And of course, the performance metrics will be coming up as well. And then we'll wrap it up at the end with the fatal question, which is, should you buy this case? So see you there. So just like any PC case, it comes in a lovely brown cardboard box. You slide the case out, it's got two giant polystyrene supports on it. These are the kind of ones that are liable to snap, so do be careful when you're unpacking it. Obviously, you've got your plastic bag around the case. That's obviously to protect against scratches and liquid damage and that kind of thing. But let's actually see what's going on the inside of this case. So perhaps unconventionally, I do like to start by taking off the cable management side first. I want to see what's going on here, because this is where a lot of the action is actually going to be when building the PC. So the first thing we pull out is the box of NZXT kit. So it's got all the screws inside it, basically all the fittings and fixings that you'll need to actually assemble the PC. Nothing too exciting. We've of course got all the plugs that we need to connect all the front panels. So we've got some USB 3, we've got a USB-C plug, we've got a HD audio plug, and in addition to that, we've got our front panel as well. And the good thing on NZXT cases, and to be fair to them, they've done this for a while, is they fully wire their front panel into one block. So all you have to do is plug the block in, no more fiddling over tiny little things to put on headers, which is quite a nice quality of life improvement. Obviously, the downside of that is that if you wanted to, for instance, disable the hard drive LED because it blinks on top of the PC, then it does become a little bit more tricky. But most of the time, NZXT do actually supply an adapter for this. But if you're one of those people that only connects the power button and nothing else, then that might be a drawback. But for most people, I would consider that an advantage. Looking over this side of the case, you can see there's plenty of room for additional storage drives. So we've got room for two 3.5-inch drives. One of the good things that they've done on this case versus something like the H510 is that the drive cage can just slide out. So you've got one little thumb screw, you undo that and you can slide the whole drive cage out, which is absolutely fantastic. On other NZXT models, you would have to unscrew the whole drive from the bottom of the PC, which means flipping the case onto the side and unscrewing it. But with this new system, it does become a lot easier. It's very similar to the way that the Corsair 4000 series, all their cases, it's sort of the same way that it comes out there. So that's a welcome a change there as well. NZXT cases come with their own patented, I think, cable routing system. So you can sort of route your cables through nice and neatly. I actually don't really like this. I think the one on the left side of the shot that you see here is absolutely fine because that's got regular thin cables inside it. But the one to the right, actually I find is more troublesome than if they'd just left it blank, because it's fine if you're using the stock cables that came with your power supply, but if you're going to be doing a showstopper build, you're going to be using cable extensions, and those are going to be a bit thicker. That makes this whole cable routing system completely useless, and actually it's just annoying really more than anything. So what I would have preferred to have seen is maybe on the left, keep that cable routing channel, but on the right part that you see here, I would rather just see those standard sort of little hooky bits on which you can just tie down your cables as normal. I think that'd be much more useful for me. Now turning our attention to the presentation side of the case, the glass panel and indeed the back panel as well, they all come off, just pop off, so there's no screws to fix down or anything like that. You just pull it straight off and the side panel will pull off. And of course the same goes for the front panel as well. And upon pulling off the front airflow mesh panel there, we can see that the case does in fact come with two 120mm black fans, which is fine as a stock thing, but to be honest, most people using this case, you're going to end up putting your own fans in, particularly if you want some RGB going on. So in terms of what you can actually fit into the presentation side of this case, it's fairly simple really. It will support anything up to a standard ATX sized motherboard. So that includes mini ITX, MATX, and ATX, of course. Most people aren't going to be putting ITX in this, of course, but the option is there if you really want it. Most people are going to be using an ATX or MATX board here, both of which will be accommodated absolutely perfectly. In terms of clearances, for your CPU tower coolers, you can get anything up to 185mm into this case, which I think does accommodate pretty much every CPU cooler out there. I can't think of any that are any bigger than this. For the video card, you have up to 400mm of GPU clearance, which is absolutely huge. Again, any video card is going to fit into this case, absolutely no problem. When it comes to radiator support, at the front you can have a 360mm, on the top you can have a 360mm, and on the rear you can have up to 140mm in terms of radiators. What about fans? Well, on the front you can have 3 120mm or 140mm fans. On the top, you can have 3 120mm or 2 140, and then on the rear, you can either have a 120mm or a 140mm. And we talked a little bit about the drive bays earlier, and what you can support in this case is 2 3.5-inch drives, as well as 2 2.5-inch drives, and that is of course in addition to any M2 drives that you're going to be putting directly onto the motherboard. Our front I/O has 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports. Come on guys, this is ridiculous, isn't it? Normal USB ports, USB 3 or faster, right? We've also got a USB 3.2 Type C on the front as well, so obviously be careful with the motherboard choice you make here, as some motherboards don't actually have the Type C header on them, and then you're going to be running into a little bit of trouble there. The audio jack that you get on the front of the PC is a combined jack, so you don't get separate headphone and microphone, they're both into one. But I believe the NZXT cases do come with a little adapter which will allow you to use it. In terms of the dimensions of the case as a whole, it is 505mm tall, so that's about 50 centimeters. Its width is 230mm, so that's obviously, if you're looking at it from the front, that's how wide it is. And in terms of the depth, it's 480mm. That's sort of the length of the case, if you like. And it weighs about 10 kilograms. Not that you particularly care about that. It comes in a few different colorways, so you can have the pure black, which is what we have today. You can have pure white, or you can have a bit of a mix of both. Whichever way you slice it, I think it's a really nice looking case. I think if you had that white one though, pure white stuff inside, I think that would look pretty nice. But whichever way you go, I'm sure you're going to be happy with how it turns out. Now to look over a few extra features that I spotted on this case that I do actually quite like. So one of those is this extra cutout here that's a bit closer towards the glass. This is specifically so you can route your power cables for your video card through without having to tangle it through the side or through the other motherboard cable management slots down at the back. You've got your own dedicated slot here. I like how the PSU shroud here is perforated. That's going to assist with a bit of airflow through the case. It's going to help keep your drives nice and cool. But the main benefit here is that you can actually now run your power supply fan side up, facing into the case. Most people, you don't really need to do that actually in most cases, but some people live in a particularly dust-rich environment. If you're going to put this PC on a carpet, for example, you might actually find it's beneficial to have that power supply fan facing into the case, so it's got bit more of a chance at some clean airflow. It's just like a little extra nice thing that I do like to see in these cases. And another small thing that I like to see, especially from a modern case, is that the slot covers for the PCIe slots, the expansion slots you see here, there aren't any of those bars in between the slots, which means that you can freely vertically mount your graphics card into this case without having to do any kind of ironmongery or anything. I've had to get the circular saw out a couple of times with other cases for customers that insisted on having a vertical graphics card, but where the case would have the bars going across it, you'd have to cut them out. But in this case, it's pure, it's empty, ready to go in terms of putting in a vertical mount. So we've had a look over the case, we know what's going on, we know all the tech specs and everything, but the thing you need to do now is put a build in it, because you can't review a case without doing a proper build. So let's roll a montage. After that, we'll have a bit of gaming tests, bit of temperature tests, and then we'll get through to the final question, which of course is, do you buy this case?
darkness as I hold your silhouette, relive an age when time would live in us. I'm lying here with half of me erased, trying to figure out how you would live if you were in my place. I cannot dream in color anymore. I think I know why you painted in all my dreams. You colored me in my sleep. I cannot dream in color even when I sleep by your side. You colored parts of my mind. I search for you in the night. I cannot dream in color anymore. I think I know why you painted in all my dreams. You colored me in my sleep. I cannot dream in color even when I sleep by your side. You colored parts of my mind. I search for you in the night.
So there we go, build complete, testing complete, pretty much everything complete, apart from the two of us having a little heart-to-heart about what's going on in this case. I think the parts choice worked pretty well in this case, so we got really nice Deepcool AIO. I think that looks absolutely fantastic. I like that alloy RAM, especially when you've got 4 sticks. Does look really nice. We've got some custom rainbow cabling as well, which is sort of giving us that extra bit of pizzazz. Overall, a nice, high-quality black RGB build. We also did a separate build in this case as well for a customer that actually requested this case specifically with a slightly different design language, and on that one we used 140mm fans in the front, and I actually think if you're going to go for this case, 140mm fans are the way to go, as well as a 360mm rad in the top. That really packs the case out, makes it look nice and full. I find with the 120mm fans in the front it can look a little bit lost because the case is quite large, so that would be one of my recommendations for using this case. Temperature wise, I found this case was absolutely fantastic. I would expect nothing less from a nicely perforated mesh case like this one. Absolutely no troubles in terms of thermals. In terms of the ease of building, the build process from my point of view, it was basically like building in any other standard mid-tower. Very simple, things are very easy to route. I don't think there was anything particularly special about this case, but that's actually fine when it comes to build process. That's kind of what you want. You want something quite predictable that's not going to throw you a curveball where you're going to have to take things out and put them back in all the time. You kind of want a nice standard build process, so I do quite appreciate that. I do like the fact that you've got your dedicated cutout for your video card power cables. I think that's a really nice addition. The cable management system on the cable management side of the case, I don't really like it personally. I would prefer them just to put some standard, you know, I don't even know what those are called, the little tab things that you can tie cable ties down onto. I find that's just a lot easier than using this system. I think this is a case of over-engineering personally, but that's not to say it's a huge deal. You can just unscrew them. It's not like they're glued on or anything like that, so that is a personal choice. But overall, I think this case is a bit of a winner. I think it really is fantastic. You can fit so much stuff in it. Like, you can, it's one of those cases where you can go, I bought this case, pretty much any parts are going to fit into it. You could even put custom loop liquid cooling in here if you wanted. There aren't any specific places to mount things like water pumps, but I'm sure you could make it work by mounting them onto the back of fans and that kind of thing. So you could make it work if you really wanted to. But I think this is really suited to a showstopper build, but perhaps not for that custom liquid cooling for those reasons we just mentioned. The real kicker with this case is the price. Okay, so this case costs around £120 in the UK, which does, it kind of pushes it up into that kind of expensive tier, and especially as it doesn't come with any RGB fans included, I'm starting to think the value isn't quite there. But that said, it is an NZXT case and they do tend to be a bit more expensive, at least when they first release. An alternative to this case, which will also look pretty nice, is something like the Cooler Master TD500 Mesh. I think that's a really great case. Usually comes in around £90 and includes 3 RGB fans on the front. If I was going to choose between the two cases which one I want, I'd probably go with the Cooler Master, to be honest. I quite prefer the style. It's a little bit more sleek. and of course it's better value as well. But that's not to say this NZXT H7 is bad. I think if you pick this case up, you're going to be very, very happy, and especially go for that white one. Get a pure white build in that. It's going to look absolutely beautiful. With that said, have you used this case? Or from looking at the video, do you have any thoughts on this case? I want to hear them down in the comments. So please write a comment below. Of course, there'll be a video suggestion popping up somewhere on your screen any moment. So if you could watch that, that would be absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate your time. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.